Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast Who Am I? Recently, Steve and I looked into the PCR test that is being used to test for COVID-19, and we want to share with you our findings about how scientific it is or not, and what the consequences are of false positives and false negatives.
Yeah.
So, one of the people I recommend you look into was David Icke, and he has been called the Alex Jones of Britain. Do you know who that is?
No.
No? Okay, well, I think he's nothing like Alex Jones, but Alex Jones is someone who is really mental and gets angry and afraid and makes and then shares that with everyone when he talks about just crazy things, some of which are probably true. But it's hard to filter them out. With David Icke, I don't know what he was like in previous years. I just got onto his material this year, but so far he's seemed like a legitimate researcher to me. Whenever people make fun of him, they mention that he used to talk about lizard people.
See, the irony is that makes the most sense to me. Like this is what's hilarious with me is that I know very little about David Icke. But the stuff that I hear about is the whole lizard thing, and I get where he takes it to the extreme, but I get where he's coming from with the lizard brain stuff, because we evolve from various ancestral creatures, and part of our brain, the very start of it, is very much unemotional. You know, the brain developed its emotional cortex, I think it's at the front or something. It's the biggest, big part of the front. So when it starts off, it's just a primitive kill or be killed type mentality. And so that's survival of the fittest stuff. And I think that, lizards are the classic example where, they don't, emotional responses and stuff, there's none there because they don't have that side of things.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and he applies that to various people, mainly the royal family, which, I get because blah, blah, we won't get into that too much. But to be in positions of power and to be semi-callous and detached, there must be some sort of disconnect in the brain with emotion.
You mean for regular people to accept these people as their leaders?
No, but that's an interesting one. I mean, for the leaders to not do more to help and to look after the people, to have an emotional response for the people, to care.
I also think a lot of leaders are sociopaths.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Now I'm interested in looking into that. First, I thought lizard people, I don't care what he used to say. Maybe he had some episode. But now that you say that there could be something valuable behind that notion, I'm interested in it. So that's actually doing those accusations justice, giving them some attention and then thinking, well, how could this actually make sense? How could a serious person have said something that got misinterpreted? So I like that. But let's get into what
he's got a couple of books. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry, there's a delay. I want to get into the things he's saying recently about the coronavirus. I was lucky to actually find this on YouTube. It was just a snippet of his interview with David Rose, I think his name is, because it got censored. They're both banned from YouTube, so I had to go to BitChute to watch the full interviews, and then I just kept reading and watching stuff on the things he was saying about the virus. And so let's see if I can summarize some of the things that I've learned.
You sent it to me, and I watched the first 15 minutes, and it was very difficult for me to, again, disassociate what is interesting information and someone just being a bit crazy. Like I struggled to, for me, maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe some internal prejudice that I need to work on, but I really struggled with what he was talking about. So, I kind of was a bit lazy and was like, no, I'm going to stop this. I'm going to ask you for a summary. So go ahead and see if you can educate me.
Was it maybe his style of presentation that was difficult to follow, or was there a technical part that needs more explanation? Or maybe he just assumes that you are familiar with his previous talks. I don't know. But sure, yeah, I can tell you what I understood from it. So the video you're talking about is a few weeks old and is a chat with his son. It's not the Rose interview that I was referencing earlier. But
Oh, sorry.
no, it's
Sorry.
fine. His son Gareth is a reporter and sees things the same way as his dad. So they're just the type that want to be certain about claims that will affect the whole country or the whole world in the current case, before they just blindly, buy into these huge decisions like shutting down the economy or, limiting your freedoms that will have mental health effects on you, make you lose your job. I don't know. I can't think of all the consequences, but it's huge.
Yeah, well, those two in itself are big enough. Those cover, like again, mental health and losing your job. Those are two huge things. They can affect each other. So if you lose your mental health, you can then therefore lose your job, and you can lose your job, and it can then affect your mental health. So decisions coming from the virus and again shutting down the economy are massive things.
Yeah, and it's only just beginning. I'm not an economist, so I don't know all these chain reactions, but it will take a long time for the economy to get rolling again. If it ever becomes the way it used to be, it might never return. So I can see why terms like the big reset or the new normal are really popular, but they can also be code words for something really disastrous coming up. But first, let me tell you the scientific things that show how the scare, the reaction to a pandemic is a scam. So
was that his point? Like again, I didn't understand what David Icke's point was. It didn't come across as very clear.
Yeah, so in this video that you saw, he was focusing on the test to determine who has the virus and who doesn't. And that's a really good point to start with, because that is really easy to prove. Proving whether someone died from the virus or just with the virus is not as easy. But let's get into the test. So it's a PCR test, and I don't have the spelled out form of PCR on hand. Let me just tell you what I remember. It is not meant as a test to see whether you have some infection or not. It is a scientific method to amplify the trace of some RNA sequence. So RNA, I'm also not sure exactly what that is, but it's something similar to DNA. And as you know, with DNA, there are strings of pairs of these particles beginning with G, A, T, and C. I can always remember them because they spell out Gattaca.
Yeah, guanine, thymine, adenine, and cytosine, I think it is.
Good.
What I remember from biology.
Sounds right. So and they always come in pairs. So actually, you only have two different pairs. But as you know from the binary code in mathematics and computer science, 0 and 1, or true and false, is all you need to encode anything. So it doesn't matter that this is all you can work with to create sequences. And obviously, the longer a sequence, the more zeros and ones you have to work with, the more different things you can encode. And so strains of RNA or DNA encode any type of protein or living thing, depending on how far you want to scale it up. And you need to find a particular sequence of these pairs that identify a virus, let's say, or anything, but let's go with virus for now, in order to prove that it is in your system. So first of all, you need to isolate the virus alive from someone who has it. You need to purify the material that you got from the person, right? I don't know if they use the same kind of swabs when they do it in the lab, in this particular, because obviously the swabs are a very quick test. But anyway, you need to isolate it, and that has never been done. they just use samples of material that contain the virus and lots of other stuff. I don't know what is keeping them from actually purifying it, but that's one thing that he mentioned in the video. And then let's presume you have been able to isolate the virus from the sample of genetic material from a person who is infected. Now you need to map it onto those base pairs so that you have a perfect ID for what makes up the virus. And then you need to get genetic material from someone else, so usually from up here in the sinuses, and then check whether that sequence appears anywhere in that material. And that is also not done properly. So I'll tell you what the PCR does. So you have the sequence and you have the material of genetic, you have the sample of genetic material. And then if the sequence appears in the material, you might find it or you might not find it, because it's a huge chaotic bundle of stuff.
Yeah.
So you could miss it.
The spectrum for error is quite large. Okay.
Yeah. So you use the PCR method to amplify the sequence you're looking for. So if it is in there, then this test will double the chance of finding it. Yeah. And that is called one cycle of the method. I don't know what happens with all the other stuff in there, if that gets amplified too, but since you have already decided in the beginning what you're looking for, that method somehow makes it twice as likely that you're going to find it. So if the sequence is in the material, then running 30 cycles of the PCR method will make it super likely that you find it, okay? And if it's not in there, then in theory, you should still not find it after 30 cycles of the PCR method. But that's not how biological beings work. We have a little bit of everything in us.
Yeah.
Even all kinds of viruses. I don't know if we get it through breathing, through eating, but it's so tiny, minuscule portion that it does not harm us and does not make us infectious. It does not cause us to pass it on. I guess we might pass it on in this tiny portion again, the same way we got it, but never enough to make someone symptomatic.
So his analysis of all that and the data you've shared, does that mean he's saying it's like there's no virus? Is that what he's trying to tell people, or what's he trying to actually get across?
He does go that far, but we don't even need to go that far to show that it's a scam. But yes, it is going in that direction. I don't want to go to the extreme right away. I want to show you how it's how the whole process in between is flawed as well. So the part where he claims that the virus's signature is computer generated. Let me mention that quickly. So the study that found the virus didn't even find the entire sequence that makes up the virus. That's why I said they never even purified it entirely to isolate it from all the other noise, you could say. They just found a part of the sequence and then used computer simulations, modeled for, I guess, viruses in general. I didn't read the study, but they were able to predict the remaining part of the sequence with a computer generated model, okay? Probably from other data on viruses and their RNA sequence. So this already tells you that they don't know the exact sequence because these predictive models and simulations are not perfect. They're just based on previous observations. So they don't even have the exact sequence of base pairs to identify the virus. And the part where he goes all theatrical, where he says, should we have a vote on it? Should we find a consensus on what the rest of the sequence is? All in favor. And maybe that's the part where you thought he went off the deep end.
Pretty
Because
much, yeah,
he
yeah,
can
pretty
get theatrical
much.
that way. He does like
Yeah.
to show the
Well,
absurdity.
he's a showman, isn't he? Like he makes his popularity and his money from being a showman. So
He's a speaker. He's
yeah.
not an actor, but of course,
Well, you know, you don't have to be an actor to be a showman. Yeah.
in order to teach lay people, you need to boil it down to the basics, to the absolute
Yeah.
essentials of your argument, and present it in a form
Yeah.
that is not scientific.
No, there's going to be bias there. Like, I mean, like any scenario, non-conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory, he is projecting a image that is that isn't just objective.
Of course.
Like he say he will be, but he's obviously not, because if he's putting on the theatrics, he's trying to influence. Which again is fine. I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that, like, because again, this is the problem, is that when I say things, I don't necessarily mean it's a good or a bad thing. I just that's what is to me going on.
No reporting is absolutely neutral or objective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just be honest. Of course, he has a certain objective. He wants to convince you of his viewpoint, and of course, nobody's information is ever complete. We mentioned that in the last episode as well. Yeah. So yes, I imagine there's a certain confirmation bias with with what he chooses to present and how he presents it.
Okay. Right, carry on. Sorry, it was just interesting, came into my head. Sorry.
No, that's an important thing to remember about any and all reporting. But the nice thing is that he is just reporting what he reads from doctors, their studies, and even sometimes it comes straight from the governmental institutions that want you to lock down and to be afraid. Yeah. So in America, the CDC or globally the World Health Organization, or Dr. Fauci has even mentioned that the PCR test is flawed and cannot tell you whether you have the virus or not. Because in order to have a reliable result of the PCR method, to use it as a test, whether you have the virus or not, you should stop at 24 cycles. Because whatever comes after that is just too much, is an excessive repeating of the process that amplifies the signal you're looking for. And since everyone has a bit of it, has a bit of everything in them, they're extremely likely to show as positive. Elon Musk, I heard, did the test 4 times in a row and got positive, negative, positive, negative. So that's how crazy the test is. And since you have this extreme sensitivity to the test when it's performed this way, you get a lot of false positives. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard you're also supposed to get a lot of false negatives, but I wonder how that works. You know, people who have the virus but test negative. I'm not sure about that one.
So, okay, just random question. Do you think the testing could be just an error of trying to make it as quickly, get it out as possible so we can limit the damage by the virus? Because even if you're getting some correct results just now, it's better to have that as soon as possible than it is if you just left it to just run its course over the course of a year or two. Do you think that's what's happening, maybe?
I don't know. I would have to speculate on the motivation of the people deciding how to perform the test, right? If you are like David Icke, you will say, well, people have a certain agenda and they need you to conform, and therefore they need something that looks scientific, that is supposed to convince you that what is necessary, that what they're doing is necessary to save people from dying.
Yeah.
Because that will motivate you to do almost anything.
Yeah.
When it's in the name of life and death. But what you're saying is let's not be so skeptical and give them the the benefit of the doubt.
Well, cynical versus skepticism, because has David actually been to any of these hospitals to see the people that are on respirators and dying? Like, has he gone out there and actually had a look rather than just looking at paper? Like I've got doctor friends in London who have like are on the front line
Mm-hmm.
watching people die, and like and people in care homes who are watching people die. And it's very strange to have someone that's just looking at paper telling you these things.
Yeah, that's a good question. I also wonder if I can ever know the truth, because my access is always limited, and everyone's access is limited. You know, reading online is like what you say, just is just reading paper. And yes, seeing someone sick firsthand is more valid, of course. But if if it's something big like a pandemic, you need statistics, right? You need to know the state of basically everyone in the world to make a perfect decision. So no one will ever have the first-hand knowledge. I guess someone who went to a lot of hospitals would have the best kind of knowledge.
What's about someone that's had it?
What do you mean exactly?
The virus. What about someone that's actually had the virus?
Yeah.
Is that not first-hand evidence?
Well, how do you know that it's not the regular flu?
Very different side effects. So both people we know,
Mm-hmm.
I won't name names, recording, had the virus and had this post-virus fatigue, they're calling it, where for like 3 to 4 months, if not more, they are just flat out, like they have the kind of fatigue that I do
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to, but then they get better, they get through it, and that's not necessarily been heard of before.
Right.
To
What
that
age are these
level.
people? Age seems to make a huge difference in how long people take to recover.
Yeah, one's 30. Well, it doesn't. I've read articles, articles of people who are like 18, 19, 20 who have had this, people who are 50 who've had this.
Mm-hmm.
One of the people I'm referencing is like 30. I should know because they just had a birthday.
Our age?
30. Yeah, our age, 35.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And it, yeah, the that effect itself is very much when you have the flu, you have flu. I mean, COVID is a type of flu, is it not? Like, I think that's the whole, like, the virus is referred to as a sort of flu-like virus, I guess.
The flu is a virus.
Yeah.
And
influenza.
There have been many coronaviruses.
Yeah,
that's why this one has the, to be specific, it's called COVID-19. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know how widespread other coronaviruses have been, and whether the symptoms have been as severe.
Yeah, there's definitely something not right. Like I again, this is all just opinion of me. We're all sharing statements and mixing up facts with opinions, and evidence could be biased and blah 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 blah. But like, my brain just lost its train of thought. I guess the evidence to me suggests that there's something happening. And this is what I love about conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories take it to the next level, to a whole new extreme. And they lose, in my opinion, the actual what's potentially going on by taking it to that extreme. So to say the virus doesn't exist, the evidence can be there. Like, again, you've shown the testing is completely invalid in many ways. But then there's evidence suggests that there's something going on. So what is this that's going on? What is actually happening? And I do personally, maybe I'm jumping ahead of here, but I do personally believe there is some sort of scenario about control, about trying to freedoms and limiting those freedoms in the general populace. But I think it's been done through an actual virus, not through this is just false evidence.
We can't just say stop pretending being sick.
Yeah, it's like if someone's ill, then you're ill,
and I don't know enough about viruses and flus to know how unique these combinations of such symptoms are. I also keep hearing of people losing sense of smell and taste.
Did David like address that at all in any of his discussions? Like,
I only watch a few, so I don't know.
okay,
He can only cover so much in any one of them.
yeah. Well, we've covered quite a lot already in a short time. He could cover it as well. He's supposed to be professional at this stuff.
I follow lots of different people speaking on the
Yeah.
subject, so I'm not a diehard follower of his.
Yeah.
I just like his
Interesting approach. Yeah.
candid, honest. Well, he tries to do what's right, and he seems to enjoy a lot of trust and with people. Like he spoke at a protest in London once, and again he was using very simple terms to explain to confirm to people what they believe is wrong with what they're being told by the government. He said, this virus must be so smart that it's the government tells you that starting next Monday we will lock down and everyone will have to be inside. So now it has a calendar, and he makes all these claims like, so now it has a stopwatch, and now it knows how many people are in the room, stuff like that, which I think is not the most convincing way to talk about
it's quite patronizing, like, because I get the theory because people like I've seen it all over Facebook and stuff, people making those comments and stuff, and I get what they're saying because it is stupid having things like curfews and whatever else in terms of that the virus is not going to suddenly actually still work, but at the same time it's limiting population interaction. Again, nighttime is when people get drunk, they go and they mix loads, they hug each other loads, they all this information, all this connection. And if you limit that, in theory, that will limit a spread. It won't stop it, but it limits it. It's a strange thing to say. Like,
I think so. I don't know. I'm not confident about those things myself. There are studies about when you speak, how far do your droplets actually spread? And they can go a lot further than 1.5 meters.
Yeah.
I also am wary of immune systems being, what's the word? Protected too much can be harmful. Yeah. It is actually healthy to be exposed to the regular amount of infections going around with everyday interaction, like speaking and shaking hands. And if you don't do that, then your immune system becomes too vulnerable and you might actually get sicker. Maybe that's happened. Maybe that's what happened after the first lockdown. Maybe it'll get worse after the second one. And it'll just keep giving legitimacy to the theory that we're not locking down enough. So there are a lot of unknowns, and it is, I think, irresponsible to make these huge decisions based on them, based on the theory, where you just take credit for good things happening and claiming that it proves your theory. So I wish people were more logical about it. And I guess a lot of people are, but then the other factor is people being afraid of police and, I don't know, losing freedoms. And that
it's the fear is, again, the fear they use is the emotion of losing loved ones. Like a lot of the herd mentality concept, herd immunity concept is being okay with just losing an entire generation. It's like, okay, all our old people can just die and we'll get immune. Most healthy people will get a resistance to it or whatever. Some will die, but the general population will be fine. And that's the difficult thing. It's like, well, where do you draw a line between logic of just doing that and actually being scarily cold? Again, the difficult part, as you say, is they're making big choices that for like whole populations, which is a dangerous thing, because again, governments necessarily shouldn't be making always such
we choices. Give them the power to make those choices, and
like we talked about before,
whenever they can abuse them, they will.
Yes. No, I agree on that. Because again, the British government wanted to. The British government was quite happy to do the herd immunity and let us all just get on with things. And then suddenly they realized that the general population was not happy with that. And so they've twisted it around to their advantage in the sense that they now have us all in lockdown lots and know that they have now control over that. They can now just do that whenever they want. And again, whether it's a good or a bad thing, who knows? Because again, there are so many big factors. Again, economy, like long-term consequences. This is not my opinion. This is not right in me saying it's right or wrong. But again, do you let that generation of elderly people die so that your future is secure in the long term, so the economy keeps going, so people don't starve, so people don't lose jobs, so people don't become impoverished? Or do you hope that you can get it under control, let the economy suffer a little bit, let people suffer a little bit, save those elderly people so they have longer to live and time with their families and that connection, and hope that the economy can get itself sorted without, again, the mental health difficulties, the being outweighing the emotion of losing those people. And that's such a complex thing that you can't measure. And it's like, it's kind of the damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario.
Yeah.
Because either way, you're either upsetting loads of people and breaking people's hearts because they lose their loved ones, or you're ruining people's lives with, again, lack of jobs and their mental health.
Yeah, that's true. And so it's difficult enough to have people in power decide for us how to deal with the situation. But what makes it worse is when they lie to us about it and therefore manipulate us and make us agree with their perspective.
Yeah.
So in Italy, I think the pandemic in northern Italy was used to convince a lot of people that drastic action is necessary. But I heard that northern Italy is an old folks home. Has what's it called? Smog.
Aged population.
Yeah, an aged population, a bad air. And so those factors may have also been responsible for the high death numbers in that area. And then it's difficult to tell whether the death rates are real, because there is a monetary incentive for doctors to put COVID-19 on a death certificate. They get paid more, or the hospital gets paid more if that is the cause of death rather than something else. And so a lot of hospitals lied about that. Where even if someone has flu symptoms, what exactly did they die of? There was a report that even a motorcycle accident where someone died got classed as a COVID death. So there's a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
And it just makes it impossible for the regular person to have enough knowledge to make the right decision, but then it's even taken away from us. So how are we supposed to deal with this? I think authoritarianism is not the way to go.
Yeah.
I like what Sweden did. I don't know whether they're still relaxed about it and letting the populace decide for themselves, if they want to voluntarily stay at home and wear masks. But I think a lot of authoritarian decisions are enabled by our ignorance. And ignorance is, I think, sounds very negative. Just stop being so ignorant. You're such an idiot.
It's always seen as an insult, isn't it? When it's not meant to be that way. Yeah.
No, often, and in this case also, I meant the word as just lack of knowledge.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I don't blame most people for the lack of knowledge. I mean, I have lack of knowledge too. It's a relative thing, because everyone's so busy working, trying to survive, or looking after each other and themselves. But the less we know, the more people can do with us or
To
decide
control us.
over us. Yeah. So that is a duty every single person has, to not be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And the news, as in mainstream news media and printed news, is not good enough. That is an instrument used by people to spread lies, because they have all the money they need to pay off the editors and the reporters and the studios and the networks. Like Jeff Bezos just buys the Wall Street Journal, not sure how many years ago. You can look up the funding for all kinds of UN institutions, and news media include the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they have a huge influence there. You keep finding these names all over the place. Also, Gavi, I forgot what the acronym stands for. It's a program that has been used in like Bangladesh, India, and African countries to mass vaccinate people. And those vaccines are mostly not healthy for you. They contain all kinds of junk as well. And they are used to implant a little digital device to be able to identify you and to measure, observe all kinds of biological signals, like heart rate and I don't know what else. And they always underline the positives. Yes, it is kind of nice to have more data to go on, but it also comes with, what's the word? What the NSA does, surveillance state. It comes with that too. So I am always in favor of decentralizing these things, not using central institutions like government to run these things. And we're only at the beginning of understanding the need for decentralization. Blockchain is a big step in that direction. And so it gives me hope that there is a technology, there is a protocol to make things more viable to new technology, to take advantage of it, to be more efficient with, say, using the resources that the planet has, making sure that crime is noticed and reduced, but without centralizing the power over those programs.
Local militia. There you go. Local militia. That's what we need.
I guess, localizing is one way to do it, but another way is just, ensuring, so blockchain right now is used mainly for finances, right? It ensures that the ledger about financial transaction is pristine. Cannot be falsified, therefore creating money where it actually never existed, or taking it away where it actually belongs to someone. But if you could do that with other data, with, say, whether this land belongs to you, or where did this medicine actually come from? I want to see every step of the way, chain of custody, or supply chains. So there is a bright future for those processes being
transparent.
Yeah, transparent, responsible, legitimate. Whereas now there is no responsibility for the people involved, because you have to trust them. And so blockchain systems are trustless. It sounds negative at first, like, does that mean I can't trust them? No, it means that trust is not necessary to know that they are what they claim to be. It's crazy because the paradigm is so new.
It'd be ideal, wouldn't it? 100% clarity. But again, trying to, that's a difficult one in itself, because, okay, let's go through, again, medication, go through food, go through, again, land. You'd have to spend a whole day just reading through documentation of where things are, and like, that's a whole day gone that, again, working should be done to get money, kind of thing, obviously, to live and pay for food and whatever else.
it will make all those jobs obsolete, like a tax advisor will no longer exist in the future because you have perfect transparency over everything you owned and spent. And right now, when I get my tax returns, I can't understand them.
Yeah.
I don't understand the German language in them, or the numbers, where the numbers come from, the laws. You need to study all of that for years before you can actually interpret one of these documents. And so I don't trust the institution that produced this.
Yeah. Again, simplification is always the way forward. Like,
Yeah,
like people talk about genius, and they I think I've said it before. They talk about genius, they always think of confusing things, and oh, that's genius because I don't understand it. It's like, no, true genius is simplifying something so everyone can understand it.
Yeah,
like that is the way forward. But again, how we get to that point is still early days and still a process that's going on. Because again, it'll continue to what do they call it? Like polarize, where certain factions will get more and more. Sorry, more's the wrong word. Will get better understanding of things and try to break away from the machine, as it were. And other people will just get more and more involved in it and continue to lose more and more of their freedoms. Like that's what's going on, basically.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And so I like what you said about simplification. You know, we divide our tasks, and when I say we, I mean a society divides up tasks because you have to specialize in order to have the necessary expertise in any field. And so I cannot do what others do and what certain parts of government do, and I'm kind of forced to trust them, to rely on them, and that is not good because it leads to corruption and abuse of those powers. So if we can make some processes obsolete and others transparent so that anyone can understand them, and not only understand them but own them, like a cryptocurrency wallet is like a bank account with no bank. You are your own banker. You are in charge of your own money. And so there are no hidden things going on. There's no money being created out of thin air and then earning interest from you when it's issued as a loan to you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, the bank again
can happen, but they are obfuscated for a reason.
Yeah, like you talk about governments and stuff. But again, it's banks. Banks are a massive issue in themselves with the level of control they have, level of influence. Again, the financial crash, 2008, whatever it was, very much an area where people blame the government, but it was, yes, the government should have regulated it better, but actually it was the banks, it was their misuse of everything that caused it to happen. And yet there were so few repercussions for them and so massive repercussions for the population. And I wonder why that is. Okay, because potentially, in theory, who knows the facts, but in theory, behind the scenes, they control people because they own their money, they control their money. So if higher up people in governments and stuff try and mess around, all the banks have to do is press a delete button and that person's money's gone.
That's a good point. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it is. Since it's possible, we need to do something about it. Like I said, any bad thing that you make it possible for someone to do, they will do if you don't stop them. And so after 2008, there was the big bailout, creating money and giving it to banks and other huge corporations to help them survive, and not giving barely enough to the regular citizens. A few months ago, trillions of dollars were created from nothing for the same reasons, but in order to get enough people in the Senate and the House of House of Representatives to vote for it, they had to combine it with stimulus checks for the people, $1,200 per month for, I don't know, 3 months or so. And that's over, by the way. That's finished. So some are hoping for that to repeat. So that's a bailout, but I've also read and that laws have been implemented for a bail-in to be possible, and that is when a bank just take, or when all big banks just take, let's say, half of all the savings that people have on their bank accounts, because
Yeah.
and they won't ask for permission because by law they're allowed. We just don't know about it unless we educate ourselves. And they will just say, oh, it's necessary for the economy to survive, and that is necessary for everyone to survive. So it's it's rectified. No, what's the word? It's there is good reason to do it.
Yeah, justified.
Justified. That's the, yeah. Just like wars are justified by through
Yes.
lies, and that's another thing that would become less if we had more understanding of the processes going on in the background. And sometimes they're not even in the background, they're there to read in publicly available documents. We just don't know how to find them or how to interpret them. But wars are there to make money, not to take revenge on any people or so. It's just to make rich people even richer.
Yeah.
And the more we understand that, the more we can do against it.
Sorry, I'm glad you mentioned this because this always fascinates me. So a lot of people have been praising Trump for this whole Middle Eastern peace scenario between, I can't remember where it is. This is my ignorance showing, but well, it's my lack of memory, to be fair. A biological flaw. But yeah, there's the whole North Korea and South Korea thing, and then there's the whole there's another two states within the Middle East area that he like got to de-escalate arms with or made a treaty with, and people are like, oh, he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, and I'm like, facepalm, because there is no like people not realize the agenda here. So you have three massive bodies: you have Russia, you have America, China. And you have China, and like Trump is just solidifying power for when he had, well, if I say Trump, see, this is the bad problem. The government of America, the people in charge, are solidifying power through a leader like Trump, in preparation for war with China or Russia. Like, it's literally, that's all it is, and it's so obvious that that's what's going on, that they're preparing for stuff that's going to have potential. Again, who knows what is going to happen in the future, but potential, because China's getting more and more like dominant and aggressive in its behavior. America's getting more and more aggressive in behavior. Again, they just escalate each other backwards and forwards because neither of them want to just go, hey, you know what? It's okay. We'll just have peace and be happy. They want the power. They want the riches. They want the wealth.
They need an excuse to manufacture weapons and planes and everything that goes along with it, because that's a huge business, and it seems justified to the people. They're securing our country, and so if let's say there was a hot war between China and America, them actually shooting at each other's countries, then a lot more people would stand up against that and try to prevent it. But if they fight on someone else's land, like in Syria, well, I guess Syria is more Russia against America.
But
with China, it's more in the Pacific Sea. Then the people of the empires don't care as much, especially if the news keeps telling them Muslims are evil.
Again, that's where the ignorance term does come in as a sort of a negative, because people are just so lacking knowledge and so easily influenced when it comes to a them versus us mentality. Again, you just hit the nail on the head where it's like, again, the term Muslim, loads of Americans and Chinese, actually, the Chinese are very segregated against
all religions?
faith. Well, all religions, but again, they have like full-on state town areas where Muslims get like put into, not necessarily as bad as concentration camps, but like close enough.
Yes, I've heard of that. The Weavers, what are they called?
Can't remember. But
there is this certain ethnic group that is persecuted in China. And they have a Muslim background.
And again, them versus us gives people the justification, that word again, to just allow these wars in other places to take place.
Proxy wars, Now, some people have compared the Corona situation with 9/11.
Okay, interesting.
Because with 9/11, the national security state was introduced. For example, strict security checks at airports, and just
Terror,
a lot more fear. And the word terrorists, yeah, everywhere.
yeah, and the Freedom Act, whatever it's called, it's
The
like
Patriot Act, yeah.
Patriot Act, that's it, yeah, where actually it's the right to just go into someone's house and take them and waterboard them and torture them for information. They could just do that.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the Patriot Act covers all of that, but there is more than just the Patriot Act, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's another law from that time that allows them to attack Afghanistan and Iraq, and that keeps getting reinterpreted to attack any country in the Middle East. Anyway, lots of stuff like that happens, and now it's bioterror.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point with the virus and stuff, that they are introducing legislation and situations that take away the freedoms.
One popular term now is medical martial law. We're still not at the extreme form, but if we keep allowing this to happen, then it will become martial law.
The fines are incredible in this country. Yeah. Like there's a street in Gloucester that they had 2 parties on a couple weekends, or like last weekend during a lockdown, and there was like more than 30 people there, or more than 6 people there, or whatever the rule currently is. And the owners of the people who admitted to hosting the party got fined £10,000 each. That's a lot of money. Like, that's substantial. And as you say, that could just be the start of it.
Yeah.
But again, the counter argument of that is that what's a life worth?
Yeah.
Where if these people do spread the virus and it kills people, like, again, that 10 grand fine, fair, because these people are playing with people's lives. These people are being selfish. Again, we don't know what's it's so hard to know what's truth and what's fiction.
If there is a causal connection, then I understand, but we don't know if there is.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. We just believe it because we're told it, and because we see it. Again, because to go back to what I said earlier about knowing people on the front lines and knowing people that have had what is called the virus. This thing is deadly. It causes a lot of.
You mentioned someone on the breathing machine. What's it called? Ventilator.
Yeah, right.
I heard that hospitals also get money for using those, and that they can make death more likely when they're used. So it's sick to think that doctors and nurses will do something for money that will actually harm the patients more. And a lot of doctors and nurses have spoken out about this, but are heavily censored on social media and platforms like YouTube.
Yeah.
So there are problems everywhere in this thing. And I personally believe the scientific research communities and methods are dishonest, and publications. And so a lot of false beliefs are spread and are just kept alive, mostly for financial reasons and reputation. So a lot of unknowns that make it impossible for us to actually know what is the right way to go.
Yeah, I think that's a good conclusion.
We always
statement.
need to keep the right and the power to make the decisions.
Yeah. But what do you do when you, because again, what do you do when you don't, or you can't get the evidence? Like, it's like, you have to make an educated choice or an ignorant choice.
Yeah.
If you want to put it that way, and go with your gut sometimes. Like, just go with your gut and, and just do your best to push the boundaries, but also care for one another. Because again, if this, let's say, if it isn't such a thing as a virus, it's all just made up, and there's lots of stuff going on that is making it look like there is one. Well, I can't know that, even if, no matter what evidence David Icke gives or other people give, I can't. And I can't know that it's not, that it is a thing. Therefore, I choose to believe that it is a thing, because actually that's, to me personally, the most humanitarian option. Like, I choose to stay at home to save lives. Like, I choose to conform to the lockdowns because even if there wasn't a virus, again, I don't know if there is or not. So I'd rather choose that there is rather than going out there and potentially spreading it and killing people. That's, again, this is my opinion.
Yeah,
that's the choice that I make.
It seems to be the safe way to go, right? Because
I would rather not
you lose
that.
you lose social interaction, and then that's not worth killing people over. But that's not all there is to it. And I can very much understand what you were saying. I'd like to say I don't know if Australia exists or not. You know, I've heard lots and lots of witness and evidence, but that's different from knowing. And so a lot of people aren't even aware that their mind is filled with assumptions, not knowledge. So directly knowing might not even be possible. You know, it's a philosophical question whether anything is knowable at all. So you can go to that degree as well.
I guess you could. I guess we could go into the hospitals and we could go try to get ourselves exposed to it, have it, and then we would know. And if we go and don't get anything, then we would know. I mean, that's the extreme side of things.
And on the note of hospitals, there have been, I have seen videos of people, you know, breaking into hospitals through the security and discovering that they're empty while they claim to be overfull. But another point I want to make before we wrap up here is when I lived in England 14 years ago and told someone I was German, they confronted me with a difficult question. They said, how could a Christian, wonderful, peace-loving nation like Germany go so far as to, you know, create this Nazi movement and persecute, kill Jews, and then attack neighboring countries and want to take over the whole world? How is that possible? And I think I was telling them that I'm a Christian, so maybe that's why it wasn't not necessarily a critique of Germans, but of Christians. And I didn't know. I still can't give a full answer, you know, to give the question justice. I just said something along the lines of peer pressure, you know, how oh, well, everyone else is doing it. I guess that's the way to go, or I don't want to get in trouble. And we still have that. You might think that's a teenage thing, but no, that is in you all of your life, unless you work on it very much and try to remove, you know, first of all, become aware of all the fears going on inside of you, and then removing them, which is hard work. But I'm afraid that that might happen again. Now, with all the unknowns, you might think, oh, but we have the internet, but we have so much knowledge and scientific progress. But you see that even though there are all these good information signals, there are even more bad information signals, which obscure them. So it's still not possible to know what is right and wrong. And if we give someone too much power, they will abuse it and make us do things that we never thought were possible, that are, you know, inhumane. So we might make an error of the one kind, which is killing people because we want our freedom, we want to go outside and not wear masks. That's one error. And the other one is we could be too careful and give someone too much power, and we would have gladly let thousands of people die to prevent it.
It's, again, as you say, it's the unknown. And you just figure
There's no safe way out of this.
And it's important, again, as we talked about before in a few other episodes, that when we discuss these things, it's just, again, our theorizing and observations and our viewpoint on matters which are controversial. That's the whole point in what we do in this podcast. It's because we enjoy discussing these things. And for people, when they listen to this, not to make an assumption about what we're saying being, again, personal opinion or overreacting to maybe what we're saying sometimes, because I feel strongly that because we're choosing extreme topics, some people might misinterpret. No, maybe take offense. I don't know. Yeah, maybe take offense or misinterpret the point of what we're discussing. So again, the point is, who am I? We're trying to figure out our own perspectives on things, and having a good discussion like this helps.
Yeah.
And hopefully this will help other people, help people as they listen to be able to see a broader picture and make their own conclusions. Again, it's freedom. It's like, go research, go look up things. Don't just take what we're saying for fact or fiction. Don't just go, don't take everything. Everything needs to be questioned, so we can understand, again, who we are and our own viewpoints and what choices we want to make, because that's what it comes down to, doesn't it? It's choice.
Yeah, it's good that you bring it back to that principle of the whole podcast. I think it's important to discuss things, to think things through, but also to acknowledge our ignorance and our unknowability. So, and that seems to be a part of the human condition, a part of our identity. And I'm trying to come to terms with it. I'm trying to be responsible. I'm trying to interact with other people in a way that's best for me and them.
Yeah.
But I can get emotional and then be passionate about one perspective, even though, yes, it is my opinion.
Again, it's hard to differentiate between opinions, facts, and all that kind of stuff. But that's okay. Again, it's part of the human condition, and I just wanted to make that little statement I just made to make sure people, again, are objective about what we're talking about, and they don't get lost in, again, passionate, oh, they're right, they're wrong, this is right, that's wrong. It's not about that, really. It's just about putting some information out there to try and find, again, to find, to contradict myself, to find out what is right or wrong for ourselves as individuals.